Session will. There we go. So yeah, as Isabel said, thank you so much for joining. I'm really thrilled, really excited to be doing the first session. Little bit of housekeeping. If you want to turn your camera on, that's fine. If you want to have your camera off, that's fine. If there's noise in the background, if you just mute yourself. Excuse me. We'll be talking for about 45, 50-ish minutes. We'll try not to go over the hour mark, but if you need to go to the loo or leave or whatever, please, just feel free. When I start screen sharing, I will not be able to see the chat box. Isabel is going to keep an eye on the chat box for me, and we will have a Q&A session at the end. But if you desperately need me to clarify anything, just say it again. Please just shout up, because I won't see if you raise your hand or whatever. So just shout at me. We are, as Isabel said, we're here today to talk about different platforms to use for SEO. And just before I start, I just want to say that I presume you are all in the kind of digital marketing SEO world. So you will be very well aware that there is a lot of jargon in this world, and some people call things SEO and some people call it search marketing, and what blogging is to one person might not be the same thing as what blogging is to somebody else. People put it under different categories. I call everything SEO. Everything that we do in kind of search marketing, I just call it SEO, because we are doing it with the purpose of getting our websites further up Google. So it's SEO to me. But my husband's always telling me off, and he's like, that's not technically SEO, that's technically search marketing or content marketing or whatever. So don't get too het up on titles and names for things. What we are essentially talking about is, how do you use other platforms to get more readership for your content? So we're going to work on the basis that you're already producing content, and it's how do you then get that content in front of more people so that you can grow your audience, so that you can then get more customers. Just a little kind of bit of background on me. I'm just going to start sharing my screen, by the way. My name is Rachel. I am from a company called Grow Traffic. We are a search marketing and digital marketing agency in Lancashire, in England, in the UK. And we've been going for about 12 years now. We are an SEO and digital marketing agency, but again, all of those terms, we work with clients who want to grow the traffic to their website. So we use the full range of digital marketing activities, but really only if the end goal is to get more people on their website. So for example, if someone came to us and said they just want a Facebook campaign, we probably wouldn't work with them, because our end goal is the website and improving that. So SEO has been our specialism throughout that. There's 8 of us now in the business. And we've all come from very different backgrounds. So some are from a technical SEO, some are from a web development, and I'm from a copywriting background. And I think that gives us that nice kind of rounded approach to SEO, which is again why we can bring all of these different disciplines in and talk about it in a jargon-free way and just help people get more customers, get more traffic to their website. So I would say what we're talking about today, how to use other platforms to boost your SEO. Specifically, I'm going to give you 5 tips to increase the readership of your content. So as I said, this works on the basis that you are already doing content marketing. A lot of clients, when they come to us, so we are an agency, we work with clients, obviously. When they come to us, they are usually doing some sort of content creation. They might not call it blogging, they might be putting, downloadable guides or how-to articles or whatever onto their website. But they will be producing content in some way, and they come to us and they say, well, nobody's reading it. Why is nobody reading it? And they're failing to do those next basic steps that get that content in front of people. So some of these might be a little bit obvious to you, but I always think that the obvious is worth reiterating and repeating, because repetition makes you remember it. Some of them are a little bit more to do with how the algorithms have developed over the last 18 months, because we've had the summer of algorithm updates, haven't we? Which I don't think we've ever had a summer quite like summer 2021. Okay, so number 1. First tip is write the right content for your audience. And again, I know this sounds really basic, but people always forget it. once upon a time, if you were doing kind of content marketing for the purposes of SEO, it was literally just a case of write content, write anything, get as much content on your website as you possibly could. And everybody started doing that. And hence we've had, you know, over the last 5-10 years, we've had this content bubble and everyone's saying, oh, the bubble's going to burst and what have you. I don't think it will, because how else will search engines operate if they don't have content? But essentially, it has become much more important, particularly over the last year, to ensure that you are writing the right content for your audience. And what we've seen, without going into too much detail about kind of the keywords and stuff and the algorithm changes that have happened recently, but over this last summer with the algorithm updates, what we've seen with keywords is that they have become a lot more specialized. So for example, if you have a 1 or 2 word keyword, once upon a time, by which I mean last year, that would have gone probably to a company or something that had a lot of authority in that keyword. What we've seen with the latest algorithm updates is that actually the things that are being shown for that keyword, the SERPs are changing. So we're having a lot more definition. So for example, if you had the word, I don't know, special. A year ago, special might have gone to a company that was called Special because that was their name. Nowadays, we're getting dictionary definitions, and we've seen that because a lot of the dictionary definition websites have increased their traffic and their rankings over the last few months. What that means is that the seeker intent will quite quickly change off the back of that. So as people who are using search engines start to realize that the results that they are getting for certain keywords change, they then respond to that and they learn along with the algorithms. So the seeker intent changes, and what the upshot of that is that people who are searching for things will become much more specific. This has been a trend, obviously, that's been happening over the last 2-3 years. What with voice search and everything else, we've become more natural in the way that we ask for things. But that's only going to continue, and that's always been the trend. What that means for content creators and for businesses is that it's not really good enough anymore to just have that really general content on your website. Yes, there is an argument that you need it there. And if you're using things like Answer the Public, and if you're using your kind of Uber Suggest and your keyword search tools, you still need to have that content on your website that is going to answer those basic queries, because they are still really top of the funnel, really basic entry points for the website. But if you really want that content that's going to convert, that's going to get you those kind of more niche people who are going to actually become your customers, we need to go much more specific. So what that means is you've got to think about this marketing funnel. This is, you know, the same marketing funnel that works for everybody. Top of the funnel is that they know they've got an issue, but they don't know about you, your products or your services. The next stage is that they know they've got a problem. They know that there is a solution to that problem, but they don't know about you and they don't know why you're the best person to provide it. Next phase, evaluation, is that they know they've got a problem. They know that there is a solution to that problem, but there's a few people who might provide that solution. So that they know you provide it, but they're still undecided about whether or not to go with you. And then bottom of the funnel is, you know, all of that stuff that they know they've got a problem. They know there's a solution. They know you provide that solution, and they know that you are the best person to provide that solution. And a lot of people, when they are thinking about their content strategy, they focus very much on those top 2 stages. So I always use the example of shampoo. I don't know why, you know, have you got dandruff? Have you got greasy hair? Have you got dry hair? Have you got flyaway hair? Our shampoo is great. And what they do is they miss out those bottom 2 funnels quite a lot. They might have that information on their website, but when they're thinking about their content production and their content creation for their social media and blah, blah, they're not necessarily covering that. And that's got to be included in your content strategy. So yes, you've got to say, you know, have you got greasy hair? Have you got dandruff? Have you got flyaway hair? Did you know our shampoo can solve that? You've also got to be creating the content that is, and did you know that our shampoo has been tested against this shampoo? And did you know that it's gone through this many tests? And do you know that we use organic ingredients, and do you know that these are different ways you can use it, and did you know you can use it on your dog, and all of this stuff, and then the stuff that focuses on your business as well. So bottom of the funnel, really going niche on those keywords now. They're going to be long tail, they're going to be low volume keywords, and it's going to be stuff along the lines of, well, we're a really great company because we've done this training and we employ this staff and we follow these values and we've planted this many trees and we use recycled plastic in our bottles, all the rest of it. So the long and short of it is, once upon a time, content creators would just focus on that really broad, really top of the funnel, really basic kind of content that would appeal to the masses. And what we're saying now is, whilst that still matters and you still need to have that, you've really got to dig deeper and you've got to go down a level and you've got to get more specific, and you've got to really talk to those small number of people who are really searching for your products. There's a lot of talk at the moment as well about these low search volume keywords. Really look into those, really think about those, because that's where the gold is. And if you can get your website ranking for those low volume keywords, if you can get that traffic through, they convert much better, they stay longer, they browse through more pages, they are much more powerful traffic for you to be having than just all of that general traffic. So don't just write content, think about the content you're writing, make sure it's speaking to the audience that you need it to speak to. So number 2, use your social media to amplify, not to publish. Again, it sounds really obvious, but this is one thing that a lot of people forget. They put their content onto their social media before they put it onto their website. And your social media should be the channel that you are using to draw traffic back to your website. It should not be the place that you are building your audience in itself. So what that means is you need to be creating lots of different types of content based on the platform that you're using. Nowadays, as you know, there seems to be a new social media platform that comes along every 6 months or something, and then everyone's all about that one, and we're all doing this, and all the other ones get threatened. For example, TikTok comes along and it's all about video, and then all of a sudden the Facebook and the Instagram algorithms are changing to prioritize video because they're threatened by TikTok. So it's a good idea to think about the social platforms that you're on and make sure you are creating content that works for that social media platform and that audience that is there, but always bearing in mind that you need to bring them back onto your website, not just using them solely in themselves. This as well is, so, I mean, we work client side, obviously. One of the things that clients always say to us is, oh God, our customers aren't on social media, or that's not where we get our customers from, or whatever. They're there. They might not necessarily be looking for the thing that you sell at the time that they are on there, but they are there, and you need to get in there and you need to interrupt their scrolling. And this again is where that content marketing funnel comes in handy. When somebody is on social media, they're even a level above the top of the funnel. Yes, they're aware that they've got a problem, but at least on Google, they're actively searching for that problem. On Facebook, they might be aware that they've got a problem, but they're not actively searching for it at all. They're looking at pictures of their cousin's kid or their friend's new puppy or whatever. They're not interested. So you've got to interrupt that and create a bit of content that speaks to them at that time, and depending on the platform that they're on. And that's quite tricky, especially if you're going to be using your blog post that you've written onto your website. So a few tips that you need to do. First of all, think about how much time you've got and be realistic about that. A lot of people decide, well, we can be on every single platform that there is out there. The more platforms you are, the more content you've got to create for that, the more you've got to manage them, the more you've got to respond to people and what have you. So first things first is think about the platforms that are going to be the most valuable to you, and pick maybe 3 or 4. It's not necessary to be on every single one. Pick the ones that work for you and the way that your brain works, and pick the ones that work for your audience. So for example, if your audience is older people, Pinterest is one of the best networks around there, and potentially Facebook. If you're speaking to the people in their 20s and 30s, it's probably going to be Instagram and Twitter. If you're speaking to the kids, it's going to be TikTok. So think about your audience demographic and where they're most likely to be, first of all. And then, as I say, pick a few that are going to be manageable in terms of your time and what you can realistically achieve. Next thing then is think about how you need to produce content for that platform. So most of them now prefer video content, or failing that, they like image content. You know, text content still has a place, but it's probably the one that's going to get the least engagement from the algorithms. So how are you going to convert your lovely 800-word blog post or whatever it is that you've just written for that social media platform? It's not enough anymore, again, to just say, I post a link from your blog onto your Facebook. That doesn't work anymore. People will just scroll past it. So what you've got to do is think about something, maybe pick out an interesting fact or something from your blog post that you've written, or excuse me, pick out a quote that you can then put on to your social platform, create a unique post, use an engaging image. Again, you know, especially if you're using like WordPress or something, if you put the link on, it will automatically usually pick your featured image. But if your featured image is a title graphic, that's not going to play very well. You know, Facebook doesn't like images that have an awful lot of text on them. So you might want to you can use a stock photo, use Unsplash or Pixabay or whatever to get free ones, but use an engaging image, something that's going to grab somebody's attention. Again, they're scrolling, they're not looking for you specifically. So how are you going to grab their attention? So do that. If you're using something like Buffer or Hootsuite, which is a social media scheduling tools, remember to be specific in your way. So for example, if you post something to Instagram and then you just share the same post onto Facebook, you get that big line of dots that it sees before it puts the hashtags in. People know it, and that, you know, they'll sort of forgive it. But also the social media platforms, they're all in competition with each other. They don't like you sharing content from one platform to the other. They want you to create native content. So even if you're using Hootsuite or Buffer, create a post that is unique for that platform. Create a post that's been designed for it. It's got the correct number of hashtags. It's got the correct word count. It's in the right formula. It's got a decent image. And as I say, pick out the salient points from your blog post or your article or whatever you've written, and post it like that. You can obviously, you need the end goal is getting people from that platform onto your website. So the actual link to the blog post needs to be there. But again, if you put it in the main body of the article, of the post, sorry, it's not necessarily going to play well. It's fine, and the algorithms will let you do it a few times. But if you're continually taking people away from the platform, which is what they see it as, you will get penalized. So put link in comments or link in bio or however you want to do it, but rather than just continuously put the link in the actual body. Another key thing that people forget to do as well when they're using the social media, a couple of tips. Not everything needs to go on every single platform. So it is absolutely fine to pick and choose. You know, your blog post or whatever should be publicized multiple times, but it doesn't have to be every single time on the same platform. So you could put it out on Facebook, you could put it out on Twitter on a different post, you could put it out on Instagram on another day, another week, so don't just put it out once, and don't just put out the same message on all three platforms. Mix it up. It's also a good idea if you're putting it out multiple times. So put it out, if you share your blog post the first time, say in the morning, next time do it in the evening, a few days later, or did you catch this, or pick out a different point to talk about, and then the third time bring it back, a week later, sometimes even a month later. Keep bringing your content up. If it needs a bit of a tweak to make it relevant, then fine, put a little update on your blog post and post it out again. Use your content as well. If there's something in the news and you think, oh God, I wrote a blog post about a similar thing not that long ago, that's a great, get that content back out there. Share the news article and say, I wrote a blog post about this just last month. Here's a link to the blog post. So keep using your content is what I'm saying. Don't just share it once. Share it 3, 4, 5 times, a week later, 2 months later, 6 months later. Keep putting it out there multiple times. Not everybody will see everything the first time. So just as many times as you can, as many different ways, and in as many different formats as you can. Bear with, my thing's vanished. Number 3, use your content in your collateral. Marketing collateral is one of those things that seems to have gone out of favor quite a bit recently. So I was speaking to somebody the other day who was telling me that email newsletters were dead. Nobody reads them anymore. Nobody opens them. I don't agree with him. I do agree with him that readership has gone down massively, but that doesn't mean that they're dead. And I will read email newsletters that are useful to me, that are helpful. I will read them, or I will save them and I will share them on my social media. So I do think it's erroneous to say that all of this stuff is dead. But one thing, again, that people don't do with their content is use it as part of this overreaching marketing strategy. So there are multiple ways that you can do this. And again, there might be a little bit of repurposing that is required along the way. But if you've got, thinking back to the content strategy that we were talking about before, if we look at a content strategy, say in a 6-month period, within that 6-month period, if you are covering all of those funnels, stages of the marketing funnel, and you're covering broad, large search volume and niche, small search volume keywords, you're going to have a real range of blog posts, some that talk about the problems that your customers are facing, and some that talk about you as a company. And it might be things like case studies, it might be training that your staff has done, or accreditations that you've got. There will be all sorts of different things that you're talking about that add trust signals, authority, and accreditation to your business. And so all of that can absolutely be used in your marketing material. If you are doing a proposal for a new contract with a company, or you are putting together a flyer, or you are doing an expo and you need kind of printed stuff to show to people, all of this stuff needs that kind of detail that is going in your blog post. So again, use it. I think one of the reasons that people have gone off sort of marketing collateral recently is they think that it has to be printed, and it doesn't. We're a paperless company and have been for a couple of years, but we create an awful lot of marketing collateral, and it is exactly things like it's case studies, it's brochures that have examples of things in. We have an email newsletter, which is monthly. We have a kind of proposal document that changes frequently. The content that is attached to that, so that we'll sometimes send out a case study if it's relevant to the client, or we'll send out information about the staff if they want that. And it just, again, it first of all, it saves time, so you're not having to keep writing this stuff over and over again. But also it means that blog content is going out to more people and getting in front of them. The more people that see it, the more they are likely to go back to your website to check it out, ergo traffic, the more that they're likely to sign up to your email newsletter. And again, you're just getting more people there in your customer pool. So how are you going to use your blog posts? So again, there are different ways of doing this, but one way, if you're creating, for example, an email newsletter, one way that people do this, I think the key thing to remember with an email newsletter is that you need to be helpful. You need to be giving somebody information. It's not a sales piece of information. So if you just go in there and sell to somebody, they're not going to read it. Those are the emails that I ignore and delete straight away. So you've got to be offering advice to people, and this is where your blogs come in. They're a really good way. Now, what we do is we put a little blurb. We put 3 blogs on each monthly newsletter. Bear in mind, we produce about 3 blogs a week. So we pick out the 3 that we think are most useful. We'll put the title graphic, a little summary blurb, and then a link to the website so that they have to do it. I have seen other people do it though, where they will reproduce the whole blog. They'll just send a blog out to their email newsletter. It might take a little bit of trial and error to see what your email distribution list will tolerate and what kind of information they're after. But I have seen it where somebody will do a sort of roundup email perhaps once a month, and then they will send a specific blog once a month on the alternate fortnight. So it's up to you, but multiple ways of doing it, but just make sure you are sending it out to your distribution list. If you don't have a big distribution list, again, go back to your social media, find ways of growing that. We always do, once a year, we do a £50 Amazon voucher giveaway if people sign up to our email newsletter. Obviously, lots of people sign up to be entered into the draw for the Amazon gift voucher, and then they unsubscribe once they've, once the draw's been done. We get that, but we probably gain about 100 people onto the mailing list who will stay, just probably because they're too lazy to unsubscribe. So it's always worth doing it. You won't get people just signing up for nothing. You do have to usually give people something, but again, utilize all of these platforms to get more people onto your mailing list. Other things, again, as I said, when we're doing a proposal, we have a brochure, an e-brochure, a PDF document, we have flyers, all these things that we send to customers. Even if all we've done is have a very brief chat with somebody, most of the time people will say, can I see some examples of your work? Now, sometimes obviously that'll be client work that you can send to people, but 9 times out of 10, it's going to be stuff from your own website. So again, send it out and get them back there. At the very least, it's traffic. So repurpose it, reuse it as much as you can. Which leads us on to number 4, repurpose your content to create multimedia. One of the things that when we're talking about, using your social media to repurpose your content, if it is for something like TikTok or YouTube, you can't post a blog to there. If a blog is your chosen method of getting content onto your website, you obviously can't post a blog onto TikTok. So what you are going to have to do is repurpose it. But there are multiple ways that you can do this. You can start doing it for your social media, but also you can start doing it for podcasts and for webinars, and for all sorts of different purposes. So what we do at Grow Traffic is each week we have, each fortnight cycle, we have a subject, and we say, right, so for example, this week's subject is Google My Business and Bing Places for Business. With that one subject, we will do a webinar, we do a podcast, we will do 2 blogs, because we do a blog that goes out written by one member of the team that looks forward, and they give their suggestions on what the podcast might be talking about. And then we have one retrospective blog that essentially sums up what the Facebook Live video was about, and gives a summary of that. And that then goes on to YouTube as a video, and it goes on to Facebook, and it goes to Twitter and LinkedIn, blah, blah, blah. Oh, we do a slide deck as well that goes on to LinkedIn. So we'll do 5 slides that go onto there. So out of that one piece of content, one subject, sorry, we get 10 pieces of content, and we get audio content, video content, text content, and image content. Because what you have to realize is, first thing is that people learn in different ways. So no single person from your audience will see every single piece of that content. They just won't. They'll see different things on different platforms. And so some people will be visual learners, and some people will not have time to watch things, but they'll listen to things. So you've got to cater to all of those different people. The other thing, though, is that the algorithms will very quickly pick up that you, as the authority, and I'll talk about this more in a minute, are covering that one subject on multiple platforms. So they will know that you are talking about it, in different ways and on different times. And, you've written a blog about it and blah, blah, blah. So people who are in sort of digital marketing, repurposing content, it's more important than I think people realize, particularly for SEO. It's one of those things that people always say, oh yeah, that'd be really nice if we had the time to do that. Yeah, we've written this really great blog post, and wouldn't it be nice if we could turn it into an infographic? And wouldn't it be nice if we could do a quick 30-second TikTok video talking about the 5 top tips, and then do a slide deck that talks about the 5 top tips? But it's one of those things that people very rarely get round to. And actually, it is so much more powerful from an SEO algorithmic point of view. It's so much more powerful to have one subject that you have done 10 pieces of content about than it is to have 10 different subjects that you've done 10 pieces of content about. Because each time you produce a different type of content on a different platform about that thing, you are increasing your authority in that subject. It doesn't have to be done in that way that I've just said, whereas, within the space of 1 week, you do all of those different things. we're only able to do that because we have several members of staff that produce content for us. None of that is one person's responsibility. But even if you did it over the course of a few weeks, that would still be absolutely fine. And again, it has multiple benefits, because for, you know, the ones that I've just said, you know, you're doing a deep dive into a subject and explaining all you know about it. Excuse me, but also you're then creating content that fits for all of these different platforms. So rather than trying to, you know, shoehorn an Instagram post onto LinkedIn, you're creating content that works for each of these platforms. And it's a much better way of doing it, basically. Okay, so number 5, the final one, utilize offsite SEO to become a trusted author. This is the thing that I kind of just mentioned there, really. So Google My Business Card, obviously, you know, it's been around for a while now, hasn't it? But it was, some SEO people will argue that the only real benefit of it is to help your local SEO and to improve your Google Maps ranking and what have you. And that is massive. You know, that's probably its main purpose and the main reason that we would do it. But also you've got to think about the context that Google is moving towards this, they call it one-click search. So essentially, they do not want anybody to go off Google. They want you to go onto Google, do your search, get the answer to whatever that question might be, and never go onto anybody else's website. You've got your answer in Google. And the latest algorithm changes that have happened in the SERPs are really showing us. I mean, again, they've been going in that direction for a while, but these latest SERP updates have really done that. So I don't know if you've noticed, but we've gone from kind of 5 people also ask questions to about 10 now. We've got the knowledge banks being, the knowledge box has been expanded. You know, there's more information showing on the Google My Business Card. So straight away you get kind of opening hours, contact details, so phone number, email, all the rest of it. You can see that they're really moving towards this. Nobody ever has to leave Google, and you can go straight onto maps and get the directions and blah, blah, blah. So because that is their trend and that is what they're obviously trying to do, you know, yes, there's an argument that might hinder webmasters in the long run. But we've got to play the game, haven't we? Well, you know, they are our lords and masters, and we've got to do what they tell us. So if they give us Google My Business and say, fill in this information, because that's how most people are going to access it, that's what we've got to do. So it can't be neglected, and it can't be just seen as a sort of tool of maps, basically. What they have introduced recently is the posts. So I don't know how many people are using this. We use it, and probably about once a month we'll go on and update the post. The reason that they bought in, so the posts are kind of mini blog posts that now go on your Google My Business Card, in case anyone doesn't know that. They're sort of a hangover from Google Plus, really. They're kind of a way of Google checking that businesses are still there, for one thing, still open. Because if you have no reason to change the details on your Google My Business Card for a year, you know, your phone number hasn't changed, your opening hours haven't changed, so you haven't updated it in ages, how does Google know that they're still correct? How does Google know that that business is still operating in that way that it was a year ago? Because lots have changed. So they've introduced this thing that is posts, which is basically where they want you to go, they want you to update it. They initially said it would just be things like special offers and opening hours. So you're supposed to go on at Christmas to say whether or not your opening hours are staying the same. During the COVID pandemic, they wanted everybody to go on and say, are you open during the COVID pandemic, or have your terms of operation changed or whatever? But they've expanded it now, rather than just being sort of special offers and kind of operating issues. They've expanded it so that you can do announcements, and they've expanded it now so you can do sort of mini blog posts. So again, you're not going to just transcribe, you know, copy and paste your blog post and put it onto Google. For one thing, you don't have as big a word count on Google My Business. But what you can do with your content is use posts on Google My Business Cards to drive people onto your website. So if you've written a really good blog post about an issue that relates to your audience or something that's happened to your staff, and you really, you think that's a really important one, then absolutely go on to your Google My Business, create a post, and either take a section of that blog post, or rewrite it a little bit, do a bit of a summary and put a link back, read the rest of it here on the website. So again, it's a really good way of linking that in. Again, Bing is following where Google goes, as it always does. So if you haven't, a few years ago as SEOs, we were kind of saying, just sort of ignore Bing. It's not really that good, but they are they're taking a slightly bigger market share as the years go by. So don't ignore Bing. If you will have been given, as a business, Bing will have created a Bing Places for Business card for you. They get that information from LinkedIn and from the Google My Business card. So most of it will probably be correct, but if you haven't claimed it and you haven't updated the information, go in and do it. It's really important these days. They don't have posts as such yet, but word on the street is that they are coming. So use your Google My Business card and your Bing Places for Business. Use those as means of getting your content out there. The other thing that you need to be doing is using these things as a platform for yourself. So as opposed to using all of these tools to just market your content and to get your content out there, it's now really important that you, as the author of that content, become much more recognized. So again, a trend that's been happening in the algorithms over the last few years is this notion of authorship. And again, when we, as I come from a freelance copywriter background, so I've spent the last kind of 10-15 years writing content for my clients. I would publish that content on various websites as Rachel Weinhold. So one day I might be writing about cold water storage tanks, and then I might be writing about stair lifts, and then I might be writing about paint, and then hairdressing. I wasn't a specialist, my name was appearing all over the internet, but I wasn't a specialist in anything. So, the algorithms would say, well, what right have you got to talk about hairbrushing today when yesterday you were talking about cold water storage tanks? You're clearly not an expert. So about 4 or 5 years ago, we changed our rules with our clients, and we said, obviously we're still copywriters, we'll still write content for you, but we have to have an account on your website that is in your business name, and we publish under that name. So it's not Rachel Weinhold publishing content, it's cold water storage tanks publishing content about cold water storage tanks. That, in the recent algorithm updates that have happened over the summer, has become even more important now. And this idea of authorship, as Google is taking it forward even more. And again, you can see the logic in it, because they created this situation where we all had to create oodles and oodles of content all the time. So how are they going to judge how good that content is? If everybody's producing content, they've got to start finding a way of organizing that, of working out, well, what's good content and what's not. This is 800 words, that's 800 words, this is well written, that is, well, actually this one's written by somebody who talks about this subject all the time, everywhere that she goes online. So let's give that one a little bit more credibility. This also kind of backlinks come into play here as well. Backlinks are still fundamentally important to SEO and how algorithms rank content. So it is really important that you become that trusted expert in your industry. And yes, that means in the content that you write on your website, but it also means that you need to go and find guest blogging slots, and you need to be writing about your subject wherever you are on the internet. You need to become a keynote speaker at conference. You need to be featured on podcasts. You need to do webinars like this and talk about your thing and advertise that everywhere. Although the algorithms, and by that I mean the Google algorithm, can't get into Facebook specifically. It can see your Facebook business page, can't see a lot of what you do in Facebook. So although it can't get in there and see that, it does still know. They track everything that you are doing online, so they know where you are going and what you are talking about and the conversations that you're having with people. So try and do it. I mean, we get now still, because we've had a blog on Grow Traffic that's been going for about 12 years now, and people will contact us and say, oh, can I write you this blog about I don't know, this money supermarket infographic that I've done? And we're like, no, unless it is really specific about SEO and digital marketing, no. And I will not talk about anything other than SEO and digital marketing, and I will not write about anything. If I do write about it, then I have to be published. I have to log in under that company's name, and it has to be published under that company's name, and it has to do with nothing to do with me. And the same thing applies for images. If images go up of you anywhere, make sure your name and preferably the keyword, so SEO or digital marketing, make sure they are in the meta description of that image as well, because it's really important that those algorithms can follow you around, can clearly track you, and that you are the expert in your thing that you are talking about. Okay, so just a few tips here. I am coming up to the end. I've got no idea what time it is. So number one, be specific about your niche. So you can't be a generalist anymore. You need to be really honing on your subject and become the specialist in that one. Become the go-to expert for that specialism. So what I mean by that is, you know, don't just blog about it, do YouTube videos about it, talk about it on LinkedIn. Go into groups, find groups that are to do with your industry and sector, and talk about things there. Become the thing that, you know, people will suddenly start to recognize your name. Like, I get tagged by people I go networking with in basically anything to do with computers, but that's because they know that that's what I do. They don't understand what SEO is, but they know, you know, oh, computers, Rachel, will tag her in that. So be the person that people go to when they think of your sector. Share your knowledge widely. Don't be stingy with it. You know, you do your job because you are very, very good at it. So first of all, do not have imposter syndrome. Secondly, just, you know, people think, oh, but it's taken me years to become this good at it and learn it all and blah, blah. And I don't want to just give it away. If somebody wants to know it, they've got to pay me for it. So by you giving somebody one little bit of the information that you have, they will not understand the whole thing. They will not know it. So never be afraid to give away the things that you know and help people, because if you help people, they will remember that and they will then come back to you when they need further help. If you don't help somebody, if you're stingy and you're saying, well, I'm not doing that unless you pay me, then they will not come back, because somebody else will be nice and will be helping them. Don't be shy, become a show off. So, you know, absolutely, if you hate speaking in front of people and you don't want to put your blog post out unless it's perfectly crafted and it's been seen by an editor, you know, you get over it. It's just content. Just put it out there. Talk on everything. Be filmed for everything. Write about stuff. Again, don't have imposter syndrome. It's really important, and it's something that women particularly suffer from. You know, get over it. You do your job because you are good at your job, so talk about it. Don't forget to optimize photos with your name, and preferably, you know, hashtags your keywords, your sector, and make sure your content about your thing is published under your name. And if you are a copywriter and you are writing for multiple people, if you're writing for clients, make sure their content is published under their name, because it will help you and it will help them. And then get your content out there in as many different ways as you possibly can, multiple times, multiple ways, multiple platforms. It's not just one subject, one piece of content. You need to be talking about everything, and you need to be creating your content turn your content into all sorts. So for every one thing, you need to have a video about it, a piece of audio content about it, a text piece, and an image piece. And if you start from there, you will then have content that you can repurpose, and it can go on all of the different social platforms. You create a Google My Business post, you create a LinkedIn post, you even do a quick little TikTok, and you're good to go. I think that, yeah, that's it. Any questions? I don't even know what time it is. How long have I done that? I feel like I've whizzed through that very quickly.
Yeah, it was really, really informative. It was about 50 minutes. All good.
Oh, okay, good.
Yeah, really informative. Learned a lot. Super inspired. Are you guys inspired too? So yeah, if anybody has questions, feel free to ask in the chat box.
Yeah, or
I do,
shout out as well if you want, yeah.
yeah, or unmute yourself. I do have a couple of questions that might be relevant to some of you. You mentioned in your first slide, there was this funnel, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you said to rank the low volume, easier keywords, and also not to forget to rank articles that are at the bottom of your funnel. But what if most of the case, I feel like articles or keywords that are at the bottom of the funnel are more competitive. So then how do you go about ranking competitive and sales driven content?
Yeah, that's a very good question, and there's an awful lot at the moment about this, low volume keywords, isn't there? And people going for it, and I think literally low volume keywords has been our sort of secret weapon as an SEO agency for a few years, and now every chat room I go in, everyone's like, "Oh, go for the low volume keywords." I'm like, "No,
Mm.
nobody go for them. We want to do that. That's our secret." So yeah, they absolutely are becoming competitive, and the reason is that if there are, although there may be kind of fewer than 10 people a month that are searching for that thing, if those are really specific keywords, those 10 people, they are very highly likely to want your product and service. They're very highly likely to convert. So they're kind of gold dust. How do you start doing that? So the first thing is that you need to make sure that your content is absolutely relevant to that specific keyword, and this kind of relevancy and search intent is becoming more and more important. And what I mean by that is, if you've got a sort of low search volume niche keyword, just a minute, that's my alarm going off. If you've got a low keyword that's got fairly high competition, and you've sort of just gone for it because you've thought, oh, that might be relevant, and you've just sort of eased it in, or tacked it onto the end of a blog post or whatever, and the rest of your blog post isn't specifically talking about that thing, then you're probably not, or you're probably going to struggle to rank for it. The algorithms have got very, very, very clever at discerning relevancy recently. So the first thing is, make sure it's relevant. If that is a niche keyword that you really want to go for, make sure that article is speaking directly to that keyword and it's not just tacked on as an additional extra. The other thing is, it is all about a little bit about the kind of volume and what else your website is talking about and the rest of your content is talking about. So again, if you are going for a keyword, and this is the same with your high volume keywords and your low ones, if you're going after a keyword and you've only got one or two articles that talk about that thing, but you've got a competitor who's got 50 articles that talk about that thing, they're going to get that. So if you really want to go for those niche articles, you are going to have to go really, really niche in your content. And sometimes that does mean that writing that content gets boring. So for example, with Grow Traffic, we started a bit of a campaign where we wanted to target market managers. So we were looking at really small volume search queries that marketing managers specifically might be putting in when they were looking for an SEO agency. So it was things like, how do I prove to my boss that SEO is worth pursuing? Really, really niche. But we had to do 3 or 4 articles about that. Now, again, we're quite lucky in that we've got multiple contributors to our blog post. So we could give, there's 4 of us who write for the website, we could give each one of us that same title and we would end up with 4 different articles. So then for the algorithm, we've got, obviously we tweaked the title slightly. We don't just write 4 articles on the same keyword, but we're roughly going for the same long tail thing, but we've got 4 articles that do it. So it's not easy. It's not as easy as it once was. And again, also it does depend what sector you're in and who you're competing against. Some of them it might ostensibly look like they're quite high competition, but actually when you look at who you are competing against for that keyword, they might not be producing content very often. They might have a low domain authority. They might not have a lot of traffic. So first of all, do your keyword research, figure out what actually is the competition, what actually is the search volume. make sure it is the right keyword that's going to actually work for you. Then make sure you're writing articles that specifically speak to that keyword, that are relevant, and then make sure you've got more than one article that speaks to that keyword or a keyword variation, basically.
Yeah, I agree. I like the point about writing content around that topic, which is something that I also covered in my course, like having to cover informational and inspirational content around that topic that you want to rank for, because I know that some like money buying intent type of articles can be really competitive.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is, I mean, it's one of the things that I had this very conversation with a client just the other week, because he was like, he said, well, why are you writing all of this content? He said, that's not anything even to do with what we're doing. I can't remember what it was now, but it was like talking around a subject. And I was like, yeah, but you know, you want them, somebody who, I think it was about blinds and curtains, and we were talking about you know, cushion covers. How do you match your curtains to your cushion covers and stuff? And he was like, we don't sell cushion covers, why are you talking about this? It's like, because somebody might be, you know, they might buy new cushion covers because they love those cushion covers, and then they think, now I've changed those, actually now I need to buy new curtains, and I was just on a curtain site, you know, yesterday, so or whilst I'm here, let me buy curtains. So it's absolutely those thought associations as much as the algorithmic associations that you want to apply to, and especially if you're doing kind of e-commerce or B2C sales content, then you've absolutely got to think about all of that.
Yeah, for sure. Anyone else has any other questions? Otherwise, I do have a last one, which is, you mentioned having doing outreach for guest blogging. Do you particularly have any outreach tools that you recommend for such backlinking opportunities to connect with your industry experts?
Yeah, so there are and there aren't. We only do genuine organic backlink building. So we you know, if it's going to be a backlink that is going to be worthy to you, we look at websites in your sector, and we do the same for us, you know, relevant websites, and we long form contact them and say, can we do this? We have very recently started using, we call it Neil Patel's agency. It is Neil Patel's agency. It has a proper name and I can't remember what the hell it's called. But we've started using them for some backlinks because they are genuine and they are very high quality. So they only go after high domain authority backlinks and stuff. But yeah, there are tools out there that are reasonably priced, that will get you backlinks. But the thing you've got to remember with backlinks is that you get what you pay for. So if you buy cheap backlinks, they will not necessarily be worth a lot to you. They will not bring you a lot of traffic. They probably won't be from very reputable you know, domain authority websites. So there really isn't a shortcut with backlinks. And the other thing is, what we've got to think about is the direction that the algorithms have gone in over the last few years with regards to backlinks. If you have even the slightest whiff of being dodgy about backlinks, you know, you are penalized, or you're kind of demoted and downgraded and what have you. So I do think, although, you know, there's all these rumors around, oh, backlinks are going to die and they're not going to be as important, blah, blah, blah. I don't know how else Google or a search engine would judge how reputable a website is other than backlink. You know, they really genuinely do have a place, and they serve a purpose that I'm not sure, you know, what that kind of measure would be replaced with. So I don't think they will die, but I do think if you are not 100% genuine and you are not 100% authentic about it, it could very well bite you in the bum. So basically, you know, only do backlinks that are from other websites that are within your sector, within your industry, targeted at your audience, backlinks that genuinely set you up as that industry leader and that authority, voice for authority. So yeah, there's nothing that beats, I'm afraid, sitting down, Googling, and then getting contact details and contacting people. But yeah, Neil Patel's agency is the only one we've found that has matched the standards that we kind of expect from that service.
Cool. And I also Hi, this is Wanda. I also had a question. You had mentioned newsletters, and I heard that texting. Like there's a feature where you're able to get your newsletter signups phone numbers so that you're able to text them. And I was wondering if you've had any experience with that.
We haven't done it through Grow Traffic, but one of our clients has used that and has texted things out. A couple of issues that we experienced with it, and now bearing in mind we only tried it with one platform, so I don't know whether this is the same for everybody, but unless the person had saved the number, it came up as it was either like private number or unused number or something. It showed as a kind of obscured number, which a lot of people will see as spam and will therefore ignore or delete or whatever. So we had to continually tell people, if you see this text number coming in, save it, it's us, we're sending you a message, a text message. But that, people are useless, and that message didn't always get through very effectively. So we actually found that we had a lower readership doing it that way than we did when we just emailed things to people. But it's worth pursuing. And again, that was with they're a business networking community. So you really would have thought that their audience would have been reasonably engaged, but they weren't. But I've never tried it with a B2C or a kind of e-commerce direct to consumer website. It might be different. When I think about information that I receive, I'm much more likely, if a clothes shop is sending me a discount code by text, I am much more likely to open that than if, I don't know, the MOT garage down the road is trying to get me to get my car in. So different sectors might have different experiences, but yeah, we didn't have a good one, so I wouldn't necessarily try it. But I think I wouldn't necessarily try it again. I'm not advising you not to try it. I think the thing to remember with them is email newsletters, the route that they have massively gone down, that the engagement has massively gone down. And I mean, if you're getting a sort of 2 to 3% open rate with an email newsletter now, that's actually really quite good. So I do think that is just the context that needs to be remembered at all times. Fewer people are reading them, fewer people are opening them. We're all just getting so many things to our inbox now, and now that most inboxes as well have this streaming thing, mine sorts mine into what it thinks I'll be interested in, what it thinks I'm not interested in, and what is junk, and it does that automatically. So I don't see at least 50% of the emails that come to me. So we've got to bear all of that in mind when we think about it. So, but I definitely don't think that kind of 2 or 3% that do open that email newsletter, they are really engaged audience. And again, if you can get your content in front of them, and if you are helpful to them, that's the key thing. Don't sell to them, provide them with something useful. Another thing we do as well with our email newsletter that's been really worked really well for us is we do a dear, so Chloe is one of our employees, we do a Dear Coco, and she's like a kind of mock agony aunt. And so like Elon Musk will write in and say he's having a real issue because he can't get the baby to sleep, and Grimes is shouting at him, and I've heard that backlinks are going out of fashion, what do we do about it? So that's kind of help, but that fits in with our company persona because we're kind of jokey and a bit silly. So I think what I'm saying is, experiment with your email newsletters, try things, be helpful to people. I think, depending on your audience, it's always worth giving the text ones a go, but don't be disheartened if you have a really low readership, because that's just email newsletters. Does that help? I give really long answers. Sorry, I'm incapable of answering a question shortly.
It just takes a second to unmute. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. Also, one more thing. Someone direct messaged me, and I think they meant to send it to you, but she said this was amazing. Thank you. I have to hop off, but I really appreciate your great info.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Sure.
Yeah, thank you so much, everyone, and especially Rachel for taking the time out to share all these valuable information. We will put up the recording on the Skyrocket Blog Traffic Facebook group in a day or two once everything is set up. And if you have further questions, or if you want to speak with Rachel directly, you can always reach her on her social channels. But really, really glad to see all of you on here. And next week, we have a session about repurposing content with video. So if you're interested, sign up on the link that I sent on the chat box. I think, yeah, everyone can see it. But otherwise, thank you all for coming. We'll see you in the next session.
Lovely. Thank you, everybody. Really appreciate that. Take care.
Yeah, thanks.
Bye.
See you. Bye.